Now, the halachic issue here is that once you sit in your own round, people are not expected to roam around. They are expected to look into the group and talk within the group and eat their own Passover within the group and not even talk with the other group, so that each celebration is really sanctified as a group, with one exception. And that is the very young bride who for the first time is eating with the family of her husband. And the assumption is that she is uncomfortable and everybody's eyes is on her because she's a new member in the family. So the bride is permitted to turn her head off so that she won't be too exposed or that she's capable of slightly hiding away from the family. Now, obviously, such a description or such a remark is in itself not important, but is a nice point to the fact that the text or the rabbi speaking or the editor collating all this material assumes that if there is a Passover celebration, women and children are around, and if women and children are around, then obviously you'll get a situation of a young woman who just came in. Similarly, it is stated that a young woman or a woman has the right to argue with her husband whether she eats the Passover sacrifice with her husband in his family, or possibly with her parents. Now, the picture behind it, or the assumed picture behind it, is that the entire village went up to celebrate the Passover, or many of the village, which makes it possible for acquaintances and the large-scale families to go together, which could mean also that her family, her father, mother, and siblings are going to celebrate in Jerusalem, as well as her new husband's, or not so very new husband's family. Now, a woman like this gets a chance once to eat with her parents again and celebrate the Passover with them. And if we remember that people did not go to Jerusalem every year, so it's like a big occasion. And a woman is permitted to argue or to maintain that she would rather eat with her family than with his family. In other words, she gets to choose. There is a later discussion in the late Amoraic discussion, so when we get 300-400 years after the destruction of the temple, you would get this discussion to what extent is this permission to choose only the prerogative of a young woman in her early stages of marriage, or is it something that she can argue even later in her life once they go to Jerusalem? Be it as it may, but the obvious picture is that she is right there. Women, daughters, etc. Now, another very important issue, is the question of the question to who is registered for a given sacrifice. Let me explain. Registered in a sacrifice means that a sacrifice that the family is supposed to eat is a very official business. And that means that before the slaughtering of the temple, namely before they have to decide who is going to be part of the group. Now, who is going to be part of the group is an official decision, or if we want, a religious decision. And it's not that anybody can join. Of course, if the family has slaughtered and sits down and all of a sudden somebody comes in and says, I just arrived, I arrived too late, I don't have a group that I belong to, may I join you? Yes, by all means, you accept visitors and you become you are hosts for additional persons, but to begin with, a sacrifice has a list of guests. And sacrifice has also a host of the sacrifice. Now, if we read the same chapter that deals with the various dinner rules of this sacrifice, maintains very clearly that in the list of the guests or in the list of the group occur men, women, and children, and each one has to be registered officially, and you do not change, because changing is in a sense sacrilege over or against the sacrifice itself. A more interesting question is who gets to be the host. And then a third question leading in this direction would be, and who becomes the owner, and who invites other people into this one celebration? Now, for all three questions, the Mishnah, as well as the parallel to Sefta to it, say very, very clearly that women and children are official part of the list of the participants in the dinner, or in this official dinner of the sacrifice. That's one point. The other point is that a husband or a man can send his slave to slaughter the Passover for him. Of course, if it's a Jewish slave that can enter the courts and enter the area. Or a friend in his name, or possibly his children, because his children are part of sort of like his long arm. So young children or even grown-up children who go with their father are part of the father. But he cannot send in his place his wife, because the wife is a person in her own right. So she's not celebrating the Passover because she belongs to him. She's celebrating the Passover because she celebrates the Passover. Now, I want to remind us that the official biblical commandment is for male alone. And here, all of a sudden, we hear that she celebrates the Passover on her own rights. And she is not only the wife or the daughter of, but rather a person in her own right. Now, for the third question, namely, who hosts it, we have some very nice stories. A very nice story. I mean, from family perspective, very sweet. Stories of a guy who comes up to Jerusalem, and the last kilometers, if I may say so, up the hill are tired, and quite often Jerusalem just before Passover is extremely hot. And the father sees that his children somehow go very slowly and wants to encourage them, and makes a little bet. And he says, well, whoever touches the gates of Jerusalem, the first who would touch the gates of Jerusalem would become the host of the sacrifice. And both children, and all the children, female as well as male, sons as well as daughters, in other words, start running to Jerusalem, and one of the daughters touched the gate first. And the comment of the editor is, well, thus we find out, or thus the girls were found out quicker and more determined than the sons. And then she becomes the official host of the sacrifice. A question that I cannot answer, and I'm really deliberating, is whether she actually was the one to go to the temple court and to stand there and to slaughter and to skin the animal, and how would a young girl actually bring the sacrifice, is still an unsolved problem for me. But possibly the sources leave it a little bit open, and I really don't know. So we get from this perspective, namely the description of this afternoon and evening in the Mishnah, we get the feeling that it's like no issue. Women are right there. And nobody is even wondering whether it is an issue. It is like a given. And then the question is, how do you deal with the various aspects of it? But the given is that families go out to Jerusalem.